Okay, we are going to go to the next lesson, which is 7.6, Systems of Linear Equations. And I want you to take a look at both of these. And basically what we're doing here is we're putting two lines on the graph, then we're shading them, and we're looking for where the shading overlaps. So if you look at the first one, x plus y is less than or equal to 3. If we have to remember, we have to manipulate that equation first. So x plus y is less than or equal to 3. So we're going to leave the y alone, and we're going to move the x. And we're going to have y is less than or equal to negative x, which is just negative 1x, plus 3. Now, what I want to do is grab one of my little nifty boards, and I'm going to put, I want to put my y-intercept on there. So when y is equal to when x is equal to 0, what is my y-intercept going to be? So if we come over here, I determine that my y-intercept is going to be 3. So if you look on their graph, you can see it kind of up there at the top. My little boxes are a little bit smaller, so that's what the difference is there. The next equation is going to give us, well, let me finish actually putting this one. We're going to have y is less than or equal to negative 1x, so my slope is negative 1, up 1, negative 1, up 1. So here's my line. Whoops, sorry that it's very crooked. It's running down through this line just like theirs is. But what I have to do is determine whether that should be a dotted line or a straight line. And actually, as I look at it now, I see that it should just be an inequality. My eyes are getting bad. So if it's an inequality, we are going to make it dotted. So that first one is a dotted line. And now we have to determine where the shading is going to be. So I always pick 0. I need to pick a point. Here's 0 right here. And I'm going to see if 0, 0 works in this equation. So I'm going to go back to the original equation. 0 plus 0 is less than 3. Is 0 plus 0 less than 3? And indeed it is. So you will see that they shaded below that. And then we go to the next equation. So we've got two equations. Here is where I think using colors is very helpful. So if you pick a couple of colors to do your shading, it will probably help you tremendously. So now we have x plus 4y is greater than or equal to 0. So there's our next equation. This is just example number 1. And I have to manipulate this one too. So I'm going to subtract the x, subtract the x. And I'm left with 4y is greater than or equal to negative 1x, or 1 over 1, plus 0. I still have to take care of this. Divide by the 4, divide by the 4, divide by the 4. And I'm left with y is greater than or equal to negative 1/4 x plus 0. So I'm going to go back and put this on the graph. So what is my y-intercept? Well, it's going to be 0. And if you look at their graph, you see that it indeed is 0. And then we have a negative 1/4 slope. So we're going to move over 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4, over 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I end up with, oh, whoops, I did that wrong. They're doing the over 4 first. I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 1. That's actually going to give us a little bit, it's going to help us to find the point of intersection a little bit better. Again, we go back and look at the line to determine, is it supposed to be dotted or straight? And in this case, it's supposed to be straight. But now we have to determine a point to see if it works. I'm going to pick, in this case, since 0, 0 is on the line, I'm going to pick 1, 1. And I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to stick 1. 1 plus 4 is 5 is greater than or equal to 0. And does that work? Yes. So I'm going to shade up here, and right in here is where my shading comes together. So that's what we're doing with this. So what I want you to do is they give us a couple of other examples. They give us examples of just a y equals 2 line and what the shading looks like on that. They give us, if you look at the second one down, y equals x minus 2, they put that on there. And then they show where those cross over. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for where those cross over. So let's take a look at example number 3. And that one is on page 426. And this is called writing a system of linear inequalities. And what we want to do here is sort of what we did when we had to work backwards and write a line, write the actual line, linear equation from what we found on the graph. So we're going to look at the graph. And the first thing we want to do, it says write a system of linear equations that defines the shaded region as shown. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at inequality 1. The first inequality is bounded by the line that passes through the points 0, 1, and 3, 3. And so what you just need to do is find those points. The slope of this line can be found using the formula for slope. Who remembers what the formula for slope is? The formula for slope, I should be hearing it all through, coming through video world, should be y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So we can look at that graph and we can determine what the slope is of that first line. We've already picked points. You just pick points on the line that are really clear. They picked those points for us, and those points were, let me put my glasses on here, 0, 1, and 3, 4. So we would go through and we would do that formula and we would come up with slope is 1. Then what we want to do, how do we want to write it? Y equals mx plus b. Well, I know what my slope is, right? I'm going to put it right there. The next piece I want to look at is to determine if there's anything else I can find out from that. It says since, let's see, let's go down a little further. We're going to look for the where the y-intercept. It's pretty easy to find in that first equation. The y-intercept is 1, and we know that the slope is 1, and so now I have the equation for that first line. But I have to do the same thing for the second one, and that second one is actually just a perpendicular line that runs up and down, and it looks like it's at 3. So it looks like x is less than 3. So what we would first come up with, and sometimes this can be a little confusing, and it was on the test, look at the graph, and you'll see that dotted line there. It's on the 3. So we know that x is either going to be greater than or less than the 3. We just have to figure out what we're going to put in that spot. So if you start plugging some points in, you would make the determination that x is less than 3. And you would shade then to the left of it. So then you look to determine, and if you're looking at example number 3, you see that it's this triangle of shading. Now, what I want you to do is take a minute to try example number 4. We're not going to do example number 5 because it's parallel lines. That's pretty easy. But I want you to take a second to do example number 4. We're going to do it together, and then you're going to try the homework for today. So turn the video off for a second and then come back and we're going to do this one together. All right, so it says write a system of linear inequalities that defines the shaded region shown. That means that we are going to have to find two equations or two inequalities. The first one is super easy. If you look at the first one, it's that line that's running horizontally. Count up, that means it's 2. That means y is either less than, equal to, or greater than 2. But we know that there's a y and we know that there's a 2. Now, because they have shaded underneath it, that means y is less than 2. That's your first line. That's the first thing that you have to write. Now, the next one has a y-intercept of what? If you take a look at it, it's actually got a y-intercept of 0. So if we do the y equals mx plus b, we are going to stick 0 in there. The y stays like that. We've got our x. And what we have to do is figure out the slope. So if we look carefully at that slope, it looks like it's 1 over 1 or 1x. Now you do not have to put that 0 in there. I like to keep the 0 in. Y equals 1x plus 0. So our answer is this plus this. That's the system that you need. And we know for the second one, we know where the inequality sign goes based on where the shading is. We also know that it's going to be just an inequality and not have the solid line underneath it. So we would come back now because the shading is above the line, that means it's greater than the line. So hopefully you've gotten a little bit. Sometimes this can be a little confusing. I want you to try it. There's the other videos up on my website. You can listen to those. We'll be doing a little bit of review on Monday, but try to do that homework this weekend. And if you have a lot of problems, Skype me or phone call tomorrow, and I will try to talk you through it. And so I will see you on Monday, I hope.